The studio lights were too bright, the air too heavy, and nobody knew what was about to explode. Then Yara whispered the words that froze everyone. I'm leaving America. For a second, even the cameras forgot to move. The host blinked, producers froze, and Jovi looked like he had been punched in the chest. Every couple sat in stunned silence. No one had expected this. Not now, not here, not on live television. Yara didn't cry right away. She sat still, eyes red, hands shaking. You could almost feel her trying to breathe through the moment. When the host asked if she meant a visit or a move, she said softly, permanently. That word hit like a gunshot. The silence stretched so long the background hum of the lights felt deafening. Welcome to TLC Drama Live, I'm Sabrina. If you followed this show as long as I have, you know we've seen every type of fight, lie, and meltdown. But this was different. So if you think you've seen it all, think again. Hit subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's get into why Yara's words might be the most shocking thing this franchise has ever shown. When she said, my family needs me, my country needs me, the energy in the room flipped. For the first time, it wasn't about gossip. It was about survival. You could see it on her face, this wasn't drama for cameras. It was a woman done pretending, done smiling through tension, done playing the happy wife in front of millions. Jovi's face told another story. His mouth opened but no words came. He tried to reach her, but she didn't look at him. She stared straight ahead, calm but detached, like someone who'd already said goodbye 100 times in her head. He kept whispering, you don't mean this, but she didn't answer. Producers signaled to pause, but Yara kept speaking. Her voice trembled, not from weakness but from release. I can't stay where I don't feel peace. That single line changed everything. The cast's feuds suddenly felt small. Angela looked down. Andre stayed quiet. Even Libby's eyes softened. It was as if everyone remembered for a moment that behind the chaos, these people were real. Backstage, whispers spread fast. Crew members exchanged looks. Was this scripted? Was she serious? But anyone who knew Yara could tell this wasn't a storyline. She'd been holding it in for months. The quiet arguments, the loneliness, the frustration with Jovi's drinking and travel. Fans had seen flashes online, cryptic posts about missing home, missing her mother, missing safety. It all made sense now. Jovi stood up suddenly, knocking his mic wire loose. You can't leave like that, he said, but she didn't turn. That's when it hit him. He'd lost her long before this episode. And right there, in front of the cameras, you could feel it. This wasn't a breakup, it was a breaking point. After the chaos of that moment, the studio went dark for a break, but Yara didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on the floor, her body stiff, like she was afraid that if she spoke again she'd shatter. When the lights came back on, everyone looked different. No snark, no fake smiles. Even Angela sat still, lips pressed tight. Something inside the cast had shifted. Later, backstage footage showed Jovi pacing, his hands on his head, muttering, she can't do this to me. But it wasn't about punishment. Yara wasn't doing anything to him. She was doing something for herself. And that's the part he couldn't grasp. This decision didn't come from one fight or one bad week. It came from years of her trying to adapt, of pretending the life she built here was enough. She'd tried the dinners, the parenting compromises, the therapy sessions, but every time she smiled for the cameras, you could see something missing in her eyes. Fans noticed months ago. She doesn't look happy anymore, one comment said under her Instagram photo. The truth was right there, she was disappearing inside her own life. Yara had always been proud, stylish, sarcastic, quick with a comeback. But in recent interviews, her tone changed. She talked about how she missed her family in Ukraine, how war made her realize what truly mattered. Every conversation turned inward, softer, heavier. Jovi kept making plans for new trips, new cities, new adventures. But Yara wasn't looking for adventure anymore. She was looking for quiet. Inside sources later said production knew she was struggling. She'd pulled out of a few press appearances, asked to shorten filming days, even hinted she might move. But no one believed she'd go through with it. Not after everything they'd built together. Not after the house, the baby, the fame. When she said those words, I need peace, that wasn't a dramatic flourish. It was exhaustion made visible. For years, fans called her cold or distant. In reality, she was surviving in silence, smiling through loneliness while her husband filmed nights out and joked about strip clubs on camera. Every time she confronted him, it became content. Every tear turned into entertainment. She finally reached the point where no apology, no I'll change, could fix what was broken. Leaving wasn't betrayal. It was her reclaiming herself. But the moment Yara walked off that stage, something far bigger began, because her exit didn't just break a marriage, It cracked open the entire show's illusion. The cameras caught Jovi's face as he stumbled off stage, his mic still live. His breathing was ragged, voice-breaking. "She blindsided me," he said, pacing near the makeup tables. Crew members tried to calm him, but he couldn't hear them. His world had split in real time, and millions were watching. Behind him, a producer whispered for medical staff. Jovi was shaking, his hands gripping his head like he was trying to squeeze the moment back into control. You could tell he hadn't prepared for this, not emotionally, not mentally. He thought Yara would threaten to leave, maybe walk off for attention, then return for another fight. That's how the show always worked. But this time, she didn't come back. When Yara finally stepped backstage, she avoided him. She sat in a corner, wrapped in a blanket, refusing water, refusing to make eye contact. Someone said she was in shock, but it wasn't shock, it was release. After years of pretending, she had finally said the thing she wasn't supposed to say, the truth. Jovi reached out, his voice cracking. "You don't mean this, you can't take our kid away from me." That's when her tears came, quiet but steady. "I'm not taking her from you," she said. "I'm taking myself back." The room went still. A sound guy quietly turned down the mics, but everyone could still hear her whispering under her breath, "I can't live like this anymore." In that moment, Jovi wasn't angry, he was lost. He realized that every argument they'd ever had, about his drinking, about his absence, about her depression, had been a warning sign. But he had laughed them off, treating it like reality TV drama instead of real pain. Later, on social media, fans argued over who was right. Some said Yara was selfish, others called her brave. But almost everyone agreed on one thing: she looked free. And that freedom terrified Jovi. When production tried to get him back on set, he refused. "Not until she talks to me," he snapped. The host waited. The crew whispered. Then, out of nowhere, another voice broke through the chaos, Lauren, sitting nearby, saying quietly, "This show is breaking people." She wasn't wrong. That sentence hit harder than anyone expected. Even the cameraman paused. Because deep down, they all knew it. Jovi's breakdown wasn't the end of the chaos. It was the start of a chain reaction that would rip through the rest of the cast before the night was over. When the cameras started rolling again, the air felt different. Everyone spoke in softer tones, like they were walking through a graveyard of emotions. Yara had left the stage, and the producers needed to fill time. That's when the conversation turned to Gino and Jasmine, and Lauren decided to open her mouth. She leaned forward, voice steady, a little too confident, and said, "Gino, she still loves you." The room froze. You could almost hear the crew inhale at the same time. Jasmine's smile faded in an instant. She blinked, once, twice, trying to process if she'd heard correctly. Gino's face twisted like he wanted to disappear. Even the host looked stunned. Lauren tried to explain, "I mean, you can see it in her eyes, but the damage was already done." Jasmine's expression shifted from shock to hurt to fury, all within seconds. Matt, sitting next to her, clenched his jaw. He knew exactly where this was going. The producers didn't stop her. They smelled a viral moment. Jasmine leaned forward, calm but sharp. "Lauren, you don't know what I've been through." Her tone wasn't angry, it was wounded. The kind of pain that comes from someone reopening a scar you worked years to heal. Lauren nodded nervously, but then doubled down. "I'm just saying, love doesn't vanish overnight." That was it. The air cracked. Jasmine's eyes glistened, and her voice trembled. "You're confusing love with trauma," she said. "You think crying means I still care. But sometimes you cry because you finally stopped." That line hit everyone. You could see the shift, even Gino's head dropped. Lauren froze, realizing too late that she'd stepped into something deeper than TV drama. The host whispered, "Let's take a beat," but Jasmine wasn't done. Her words carried the weight of every woman who had ever been told her pain was proof of love. She looked at Gino, not with anger but clarity. "I loved you more than myself. That's not love, that's losing who you are." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was reverent. Even Andre sat still, staring at the floor. Online, fans replayed that clip millions of times. They didn't call her dramatic anymore, they called her real. For once, Jasmine wasn't the meme or the meltdown. She was the truth teller in a room built on lies. That one sentence didn't just start drama, it split the room in two: those who perform emotion for TV, and those who finally live it honestly. When Jasmine spoke again, her voice was steady, stripped of all the fire people expected from her. "I told myself I'd come here composed," she said, "but you can't rehearse pain." The cameras zoomed in. You could see her hands trembling, the small shake of someone forcing herself not to cry. She wasn't yelling, she wasn't performing. She was confessing. Every word landed heavy. "I loved him past the point of losing myself." She paused, looking at Gino but not really seeing him. I made excuses for things that broke me. That line hit everyone watching. Even viewers who had mocked her saw a different Jasmine that night. A woman finally saying what everyone else was too afraid to admit. Matt sat still beside her, his jaw tight, watching her unravel piece by piece. It wasn't anger in his eyes, it was sadness, because he knew this kind of truth changes everything. It doesn't just close a chapter, it burns the book. Lauren lowered her head. You could almost see regret sink in. She'd thought she was helping, stirring conversation, but what she'd really done was pull the curtain off years of quiet suffering. Jasmine didn't attack her, she just said softly, "Some of us aren't crying over lost love. We're crying because we survived it." The studio went completely silent. Even the sound tech stopped adjusting levels. The moment was too raw to interrupt. Then Gina whispered, "I didn't know you felt like that." Jasmine turned to him and replied, "You were never supposed to know. I wasn't strong enough to tell you then." It was closure in its purest form, simple, sad, final. Matt reached over and took her hand. She didn't pull away. "He didn't replace you," she said to Gino. "He helped me find myself again." That sentence flipped the mood. It wasn't about romance anymore. It was about healing. Then came the line that would dominate social media. "Leaving isn't betrayal," she said, "it's survival." Viewers clipped it, shared it, quoted it. For the first time, her pain wasn't edited into chaos. It was broadcast as power. Jasmine's tears stopped, replaced by calm. "Forgiveness isn't for him," she said. "It's for me. I can't carry anger anymore." Gino nodded, tears spilling down his face. For once, he didn't interrupt or defend himself, he just listened. When the segment ended, no one moved. You could feel something unspoken hanging in the air, a mix of respect and quiet shame. Everyone knew this moment wasn't supposed to happen on a show like this. It was too real, too human. But what no one saw coming was that Jasmine's piece on stage would trigger a storm off camera that made every past fight look small. After the tell-all wrapped for the night, Jasmine and Matt left the studio in silence. Cameras followed them to the parking lot, the air still thick with everything that had just unfolded. They slid into the back seat of a production car, the driver pretending not to listen, the red tally light on the dash quietly blinking. Matt stared out the window, jaw clenched. Then he said it, cold and fast, "What are we going to do about the kid? That baby's mine, right?" Jasmine froze. You could almost hear her heartbeat. "What did you say?" she snapped, her voice low and shaking. He didn't stop. "You went to New York before you got pregnant. You were with your ex, right? Matilda's blonde, Dine's blonde." His voice cracked, but the words kept coming. Jasmine's face drained of color. The driver's eyes flicked up to the mirror, realizing he was witnessing a disaster in real time. She stared at Matt, whispering, "You think I'd lie about my child?" He rubbed his face, mumbling, "I just need to know the truth." Then the silence hit. The longest, coldest silence of the season. Viewers later said this was the moment they stopped breathing. You could see Jasmine's pain turn to rage in real time. She leaned closer, voice trembling. "You want to humiliate me again, now over my baby?" The tension snapped. The car ride that was supposed to take them home became another battlefield. Matt tried to defend himself, saying he'd heard things from crew members, that people were talking. Jasmine cut him off. "You don't get to use rumors as evidence. Not after everything." Her voice cracked mid-sentence, but she didn't cry. She was too angry for that. By the time they reached their apartment, the silence had grown unbearable. Jasmine grabbed her bag, her hands shaking so hard she dropped her keys twice. "I don't have to wait until the lease expires," she said. "If you don't leave, I will." Matt didn't argue. He just said quietly, "Fine." Later that night, she posted a short story on Instagram. "I've been treated like damaged goods, but I'm stronger than all this." No hashtags, no tags, no filters, just raw text on a white background. Fans flooded her comments with messages of support, sensing this wasn't scripted drama anymore. What happened in that car didn't end a fight. It exposed a wound production had been trying to hide for months, and Jasmine was about to rip it wide open. The next morning, Jasmine woke up alone. Matt's side of the bed was untouched, his phone gone, his clothes still in the closet. For a few seconds she thought maybe he'd gone to clear his head, until her phone buzzed. A message from a number she didn't recognize flashed on the screen. It said, "Are you all right? You haven't replied." Her chest tightened. It was 2 in the morning when the message was sent. Her hands shook as she scrolled up the thread. A heart emoji, a selfie of a woman wrapped in a blanket, and then the words that shattered her, "I miss you, please don't ignore me again." She froze, her throat went dry. It wasn't just a random message. It was personal, intimate. The kind of text you send to someone you believe belongs to you. The kind of tone that says history, not curiosity. Jasmine stared at the screen, whispering to herself, not again. For a few minutes she tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was old, maybe it was me sent, but the timestamps were recent. From the same days Matt had claimed to be working late. Her pulse raced. She tapped the contact info, saw the name, a woman she didn't know, but one who looked painfully familiar from the comment sections of Matt's posts. She put the phone down, breathing unevenly. Every breakup, every betrayal from her past came flooding back. She had worked so hard to change her reputation, to show viewers she wasn't the crazy one, and now this. The betrayal wasn't explosive this time. It was quiet, sharp, surgical. Jasmine didn't throw the phone, she didn't scream. She just sat there in silence, staring at the messages until the room blurred. The producers had always said she overreacted, that she needed to control her emotions. So this time she did. She shut down completely. She walked into the living room and sat by the window. The city outside looked calm, unaware that her world had cracked open again. After an hour, she picked up Matt's tablet from the couch. It was still logged in. More messages, more evidence, pictures, plans, lies, a whole hidden thread of another life. Her hands started trembling. She whispered, "You did this while they filmed me crying for you." That's when her anger changed shape. It wasn't loud anymore. It was clear, focused, cold. When the producers showed up later to check on them, she refused to open the door. One of them shouted through, "Jasmine, we just want to talk." She answered quietly, "Not today." It wasn't fear, it was control. Inside, she gathered every screenshot, every receipt, every photo. Her silence scared them more than her anger ever had. Jasmine wasn't going to explode this time. She was going to expose, and once she started, there would be no way to stop her. When Jasmine finally opened her door that afternoon, the producers were waiting in the hallway, pretending to be concerned. One of them spoke first, "We just want to check in, see how you're feeling." She didn't answer. She walked past them, holding a folder of printed screenshots. The team followed, sensing something serious was coming, but still hoping they could spin it into usable footage. She stopped in the middle of the hotel hallway and said quietly, "I'm not filming anything unless you see this." She spread the papers on the table, messages, receipts, photos, timelines that didn't match the shooting schedule. The showrunner's face went pale. He tried to deny knowing anything. She watched his eyes instead of his words and said, "You already knew." That single accusation changed the balance in the room. They tried to stall, saying she needed to calm down, that they'd look into it. Jasmine didn't blink. "You filmed my breakdowns," she said. "You turned them into storylines while protecting him." For the first time, the crew had no script to follow. They were watching their own manipulation collapse in front of them. By evening, the news spread across production like a virus. Someone had told the network Jasmine was threatening to speak publicly. Executives started calling, trying to contain the fallout. She stayed quiet, refusing to answer her phone. In her silence, they panicked even more. They weren't afraid of a fight, they were afraid of exposure. Inside her room, Jasmine sat with her laptop open, comparing call logs to filming days, seeing how the timeline of Matt's work trips aligned perfectly with text messages from the other woman. She took screenshots of everything. She wasn't yelling, she wasn't crying, she was building a case. The next morning, a senior producer knocked again. "They want you to film a short apology scene," she said softly. Jasmine looked up. "Apology for what?" The producer hesitated. "They think it'll help calm the audience." Jasmine almost laughed. "They don't care about truth, they care about optics." She picked up her phone and said, "If you force me to lie on camera, I walk. And you know what happens if I walk." The producer didn't respond. She didn't have to. Everyone knew the truth. Jasmine's story was the only thing keeping the ratings alive. When she finally returned to set, it wasn't to film what they wanted. She stood under the lights, calm, collected, and said to the host, "You all watch me get destroyed on this show. But this time, I decide what gets aired." When the truth threatens ratings, the real fight begins, and Jasmine had just declared war on the people who built her pain into profit. That night, Jasmine sat alone scrolling through her Instagram message requests. Between fan comments and noise, one name caught her attention. The same woman from the texts. Her profile picture showed the same face Jasmine had seen on Matt's phone weeks earlier. The message read, "I didn't know you were still with him. I think we should talk." Her heart stopped. For a moment she didn't move. Then she opened the chat. Within minutes, her phone filled with screenshots, voice notes, and long messages that confirmed everything. The woman said Matt told her the show was fake, that his relationship with Jasmine was just part of a storyline. He'd told her he was only staying until the contract ended, that Jasmine was too emotional, and that producers encouraged the drama. Jasmine didn't cry. She read every message carefully, saving them all. The voice notes were worse. Matt calling her temporary, saying he'd figure things out after filming. Each word hit harder than the last. He wasn't just cheating. He was rewriting her life into fiction. After the last screenshot, the woman sent one final message. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I was the secret. Turns out you were. Jasmine put her phone down and sat still. Then, quietly, she said, no more secrets. The next morning, she walked into the production office without knocking. Crew members froze as she dropped a flash drive on the table. You've all seen lies before, she said, but not like this. They tried to stop her, tried to calm her, but she kept going. You made me look unstable. Meanwhile, he was lying to both of us. You filmed me breaking down while he texted her from the same room. The room stayed silent. Nobody wanted to make eye contact. They all knew what this meant. If she went public, it wouldn't just ruin Matt. It would expose the show itself. Executives started calling again. They offered private meetings, crisis management, even contracts to keep her quiet. Jasmine refused. You protected him. Now you'll protect the truth. She turned to leave, but one producer whispered, you're destroying everything. Jasmine stopped and looked over her shoulder. No, she said, I'm saving myself. Outside the studio, the other woman was waiting in a car. They hugged for the first time, both shaking. There was no rivalry, no jealousy, just exhaustion. Two women who realized they were both stories written by the same man. By the next day, the rumors spread across fan pages. Jasmine and mystery woman expose Matt. TLC scrambling after secret messages leak. None of it was exaggerated. It was happening in real time. Jasmine had spent years being edited into chaos, but this time, the chaos belonged to everyone else, and she was finally in control of the story. The final confrontation didn't happen on camera. It took place 2 days later in a private conference room the network booked for crisis resolution. Jasmine arrived early, dressed simply, hair tied back, carrying the same folder of evidence she'd shown before. When Matt walked in, he looked smaller than usual, like the confidence had drained out of him. Executives sat at the table pretending to mediate, but everyone knew why they were there. They wanted to protect the show. They wanted to keep this quiet. Jasmine didn't give them that option. She slid the folder across the table. You built a storyline out of my pain, she said. Now you'll see the real story. Matt started to explain, but she stopped him. You said it was all for TV, that I was temporary, that you'd move on when the cameras stopped. Her tone was calm, controlled. You lied to both of us, to me, to her, to everyone watching. He tried to reach for her hand, but she moved it away. Don't perform, she said quietly. This isn't your scene. The room went silent. No one dared interrupt. The showrunner cleared his throat, mumbling something about confidentiality agreements. Jasmine looked him dead in the eye. You can hide behind contracts, but you can't edit truth. Then she stood up and walked out. That was the last time Matt saw her. Hours later, social media erupted. Jasmine posted a single sentence. They filmed my breakdowns, but not his lies. The post hit 1 million views in 2 hours. Comment sections flooded with support. Viewers who once mocked her now called her brave. Even past cast members quietly liked the post, breaking unspoken rules of loyalty to the network. Yara, watching from Ukraine, reportedly reached out privately. Two women who barely spoke during filming, now connected through something stronger than storylines, shared exhaustion from pretending everything was fine. Yara's final post said it all. Peace is the only thing worth fighting for. Back in New Orleans, Jovi's silence continued. He stopped posting photos with Yara, stopped giving interviews. Insiders said he'd been trying to reach her, but she never responded. Her last message to him had been short. Please heal, I'm done performing pain. As the season wrapped, TLC scrambled to control the narrative. They cut entire scenes, rewrote trailers, tried to bury Jasmine's exposé under lighter stories. But the audience had already seen behind the curtain. They knew what was real and what was scripted. For the first time, viewers weren't entertained by chaos, they were moved by truth. Jasmine's calm defiance had become bigger than the show. She wasn't the loud villain anymore. She was the one who walked through the fire and came out sane. The final episode aired with her closing line untouched. Leaving isn't failure. Staying broken is. It played over footage of her walking out of the studio, head high, no tears. The crowd watching in silence understood something the producers didn't. She had finally won. This wasn't the end of 90-Day Fiancé's chaos. It was the start of a reckoning, and the next tell-all would show exactly how far the truth is willing to go when the cameras stop pretending.